God!
On today's show, we walk the trails in one of America's richest ruffed grouse forests. Find out how one man has turned his land into a grouse mecca.
That's 3 years.
Next up, a passion that mankind has shared for hundreds of years, our fascination with antlers. But are antlers and horns two different things? We'll find out.
Put a little duck on there, huh?
And Laura is wild in the kitchen this week, cooking up a recipe that's perfect for football and hunting season.
Take a little bite here.
Try one on.
And later, a story about a native Minnesota game bird that seems to fly under the radar, but fly it does. All about Minnesota's Sharptail grouse. Those stories and more, next.
Minnesota Bound. Brought to you by Minnesota Select GMC dealers.
Hi, everybody. Raven and I welcome you to the show. Now, don't ask me why, but all of our outdoor pursuits tend to be addictive, right? Which brings up our next story about a man who is so addicted to grouse hunting, he provides all kinds of places for grouse to live. Travis Frank explains.
Smoke on the water, a sign that fall has taken over Wisconsin's North Woods. For Terry Ides and his son Darren, it's time to let the dogs out.
Oh my gosh! Look at all these dogs.
Come here, boys. Come on, Tor. Come here, kids. Come here, kids.
The Vizsla, the Hungarian pointer.
Terry considers his dogs the pride of Ides Guides, his grouse hunting guide service for the past 40 years. His life revolves around dogs, land, and a love for the rough grouse.
It's a passion. It's what I love to do.
To understand it means to walk a mile or two in his boots.
I've got about 20 miles of trails here.
Each one designed with grouse in mind.
Boy, that didn't take long.
Here it goes.
Explosions here.
Maybe.
There.
Oh, there's Bert.
Explosions everywhere.
Another one got away.
They're wing dynamite and they scare the bejeebers out of you when they come out of the woods. Even when they're under point, they still scare the bejeebers out of you.
By way of an axe, this success story has been cut one tree at a time.
Bought it in about 1976, 1977, so it's been a little shy of 40 years. When I started managing for grouse the day I bought it, and have been going at it ever since.
Over the years, Terry has created one of America's richest rough grouse forests.
So this is why there are so many grouse here.
100% correct, this is it. This is an active cut here right now. He's working on it as we speak. If you want rough grouse numbers of birds, this is what needs to be done. And clear cuts like this are essential or it just doesn't happen.
Each year, he picks a new patch and chops it down.
And I do it very much like a checkerboard area back here. I clover all the trails. I mow them roughly every other week. It takes me about 14 hours to mow all the trails out back.
All this for a chance to get his dogs and fellow hunters close enough for a shot at this wild and delicious bird.
Whoa, warrior down point. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Be ready for it, Darren. Get on this side.
Oh, here we go.
Take him.
No! I went to take a shot and it was literally just branches. It was impossible.
Another one wins the game. That's a good thing. You go out there and you work your tail off for them, and you don't get anything. You come home empty-handed, you know, but you come back and kind of frustrated, but at the same time, when you get one, you say, "Whoa, I got one," you know, and they're special, and they taste great. Nice. All right, there we got one.
Catch it, Tor.
A lot of shots fired there, but that bird was not getting away.
Atta girl, fetch it up, girl. Come on. Let's go. Come on, Tor.
Come here, my lady. That's my lady. All right.
Every now and then you get lucky.
For the Grouse Father, he'd have it no other way.
I just love it. I love the bird, and yet, I mean, how can you not? Look at this, you know? Magnificent. I've done it all, but there is nothing, absolutely nothing, to equal to the rough grouse, period.
Just as there are giant people, there are giant deer. When we return, we celebrate our ancient fascination with antlers. All About Antlers. That's next.
Minnesota Bound is brought to you by Minnesota's select GMC dealers, Ice Force, Star Bank, Radco Truck Accessories, and by Evinrude, the official outboard motor of Minnesota Bound.
Welcome back. You know, it's no secret that we deer hunters have been possessed about antlers since time immemorial, right? So we decided to bring a story that we entitled All About Antlers. Come autumn time, whitetail bucks develop an antler attitude. You can see it. My, dear fella, what big antlers you have. To members of the deer family, antlers are, well, sex appeal. We can only guess what the females are thinking. Bucks must look macho, I'd say, while a bull elk seems regal. The bony headdress only takes 3 months to grow, and when the mating season ends in early winter, the antlers fall off.
And you know, that's a good 1.5 year old buck. Now we take this one and we add it to it, and it's obviously, you know, he's better. There's no doubt about it.
1 year later.
1 year later. And then, remember what I said, the biggest jump is usually from the first year? That's 3 years, you know. And now we've picked up tine length on the brows. We've picked up length on the long tines.
This is the first rack that this deer had at 1.5 years, which is a fairly nice rack for a deer. And of course, this would be a second rack, third rack, fourth rack, and fifth rack. Now he's wearing a sixth rack, which is probably his biggest rack he'll ever wear.
This also means, dear viewers, that antlers are not the same as horns. Horns are what cows or buffalo wear. Horns are made of hair and do not fall off every year like bony antlers do. No matter the size, moose or elk or giant deer, antlers grow back, bringing even new fascinations.
I tell you, Ron, that's a deer of a lifetime.
A weird and wild set of antlers.
We did a quick count. We came up with about 30 or so.
About 30 scoreable points the way it looks. And near as we can tell, the buck's 3.5 years old.
Big antlers are a product of good food and good genetics.
Just as there are giant people, there are giant deer.
Antlers also are like snowflakes. How they form is amazing, and no two are alike.
It's a whitetail of a lifetime.
Yeah, it makes your heart beat.
To deer hunters, there's no greater prize.
It'd be like winning the lottery. That's what it's like.
Antlers also are treasured as collectibles. For example, former NFL coach Bud Grant didn't have time to hunt deer in the fall, so he collected antlers.
It's not a fetish.
What is it? Fascination.
Just something I've done.
Yeah?
I mean, I don't have a trophy antler or a trophy head, or, you know, but I just had to find something to hunt.
Grant looks for antlers wherever he walks.
Those are easy to see. It's the little ones that are the real trophies.
He was a pretty nice buck. Our antler fetish may explain why antlers show up in so many places.
They make knife handles and belt buckles and cribbage boards, or, you know, and then they make chandeliers.
Of course, most antlers don't end up on walls. They fall to the ground in the woods. In case you're wondering why you never see them, well, that's because the calcium in these antlers is cherished by small mammals such as squirrels and mice. They chew on it until it's gone. You could say it's nature's recycling program.
Antlers to antlers, trophy to trophy, dust to dust.
So we're going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper.
Coming up, Laura's wild in the kitchen cooking up a recipe that works for football and hunting season.
So now we're just going to slice it thin.
Closed captioning is brought to you by Connecticut.
Time now to go wild in the kitchen. Now, Chef Jim and Laura have a recipe that I have to admit I would never think of. Duck nachos?
Football season is officially underway, and today many of us spend time watching the games from home, and we're going to do a little twist on a tailgate favorite, which is nachos.
Yes.
But we are doing duck nachos?
Duck nachos.
Now, traditionally we're not used to hearing the word duck and nacho go together, so...
They do go together, though. Trust
they
me
do.
on this one. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not a pile of cheese and a...
No. These are little composed, bite-sized hors d'oeuvres. They're awesome. You're going to love them.
Awesome. I'm excited to try it. So what are the steps to get started?
So for our first step, we want to take this duck breast. You'll notice the skin is intact.
Yes, I'm wondering how many hunters leave their skin on their ducks. More should, but it's probably a rarity.
You should, but you don't always get that perfect wing shot.
That's true.
If you can, definitely preserve that skin. If you don't have it, follow the same steps minus the skin.
Okay.
So we want to kind of score the skin, and that helps render out that fat, especially when you're dealing with some of the smaller breasts that have that thick layer of fat on there. So we're going to season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. All right, so now we have our duck breast seasoned.
Okay.
You just want to put it skin side down.
Skin side down.
That's assuming you do have that skin. But if you don't have that skin, I would put just a little bit of olive oil down there to lubricate it.
Okay.
Duck itself is very lean with the muscle. Really the only fat that we have, majority of fat is in that skin.
Okay.
So let's take a peek and see how we're doing.
Wow, look at that. Nice and crispy brown.
Golden brown. Now we're gonna finish it in the oven for about 3 more minutes.
Oh, okay, so 3 minutes on the skin side down,
Yep.
in the oven for the last 3 minutes.
You got it.
Okay. All right, Jim, is our duck ready?
The duck is looking ready. All right,
Sure
look at
is.
here. All right, so we're gonna take it out of the pan.
Okay. Can we start slicing?
No.
No.
So one of the most important steps in searing duck breast, you gotta let it rest.
So how many minutes does the duck need to rest?
5 minutes.
So it looks like our duck is finished with its nap.
It is properly rested. So now we're just gonna slice it thin.
So now it's time for assembly.
It is.
Okay, so we have our chip and some bean dip. So can this be any type of bean dip?
Yeah, we're using pinto beans here, but you can do black beans, white beans, you name it. And then of course we gotta put a little duck on there. Huh?
Yeah, beautiful.
We've also got some other ingredients we're gonna use for toppings, such as the guacamole, the pico de gallo. Got those grated cheese curds that are awesome. But this is not what has to be on the nachos. You can get creative. Whatever you think might taste good on those nachos, go for it.
So there you have it. If you're home gating instead of tailgating, I suggest you get wild in your kitchen and try some duck nachos.
Duck nachos, that's
All
where
right,
it's
I'm gonna take
at.
a little bite here.
Try one on. What do you think?
So good. I'm ready for some football.
There you go.
Up next, it's Minnesota's other grouse. Don't miss this lesson on Minnesota's Sharptail grouse. That's next.
Minnesota Bound, brought to you by Borderview Lodge, Ellsworth Creamery, and by Totem Resorts.
You know, one of Minnesota's most historic game birds tends now to be overlooked for the most part. We tend to think about pheasants instead. But the sharp-tailed grouse has been making a comeback in northwest Minnesota. Travis Frank went there to find out.
The day settlers first arrived in Minnesota, they found grassland rolling as far as the eye could see. They also witnessed sharp-tailed grouse soaring over the native prairie. Today our landscape looks much different, unless you go to the far northwest corner of Minnesota. It's here that sharp-tailed grouse still soar through a prairie sky. Matt Brewer calls this turf home, spending each fall steps behind his bird dogs Gage and Benelli.
Someone asked me once what my favorite sound was, and I had to think about it for a while, and then I realized that it's the chuckling of a sharp-tailed grouse.
To our right, Bob St. Pierre walks with equal anticipation of a flush.
Bird! Nice shot, Trav. Nice flush, Matt.
Esky, Bob's bird dog, is just as excited as I am.
Oh no!
The sharp-tail numbers, dating way back, they were the most abundant bird native to Minnesota. And the numbers had dwindled and dwindled and dwindled as farming became popular and settlers started to tear down habitat. When CRP came back, the birds really started to make a comeback, and they got so high that the population no longer needed any help or any controlling in this area.
One after another, grouse fill the sky, and yet Matt has saved his best spot for last.
He was telling us about this particular piece. He's hunted his whole life. It's got willows at the center, it's got grass around the edges. It is the mecca for these sharptails here in northwest Minnesota.
But our excitement turns to heartbreak.
When we pull up, he just has this look on his face, like, just devastated. It's burned. It's black. Bushes have been pushed up.
To see ash and scorched ground and willows all tumbled over, it was really heartbreaking.
There's a bulldozer sitting on the edge of this section, and it's obvious what's going to happen. This is CRP that has expired, and the habitat is on its way out. We thought, Matt's hunted this his whole life. We've got to give it. We owe it to Matt to walk this field one last chance.
With heavy hearts, we step foot in what remains of Matt's lifelong honey hole, perhaps for the very last time.
Man, this just doesn't feel right, does it?
No. I feel like I'm marching to my death.
Yet, we want to take one more memory before it's all done.
We walk over this little hill, and you can see there's a different colored grass, and it's a little bit thicker. And Matt just has this look in his eyes like something good's gonna happen here. Still going. Still some birds here. There's another one. Get him, Trav. Nice shot. Got him. Nice shooting, boys. I'm kind of speechless right now. I mean, that was a good flush. That was a really good flush.
Yeah, it was a really special moment to me, and I know that's the last time I'll probably ever get to shoot a sharptail out of that field.
Our hunt ends just as the bulldozer's work begins.
It's so bittersweet. It's the absolute perfect scenario for the hunt, but it's the last hunt, and that's what we're fighting.
Fighting for grassland and the wildlife that call this habitat home.
Prairie grass is good for more than just sharptail. It's good for everything.
The sharp-tailed grouse. You know what I like about that bird? When they fly away, they kind of sound like they're laughing. And when you miss, you know they're really laughing. Well, that about does it for us. Remember, introduce a kid to the great outdoors. I'm Ron Sherrill, and of course, always the star of the show is Raven. Are you ignoring me?
Transportation provided by Premier Transportation. Call 1-800-899-7433. For more information on these stories and more, catch us on the web at mnbound.com.